Dear students, we'll see about deadlock and deadlock prerequisites or characteristics of deadlock or Hoffman's four conditions. First, we'll see about deadlock. What is a deadlock? A deadlock is a situation where a set of processes are blocked because each process is holding a resource and waiting for another resource acquired by some other process. This is an example of deadlock. Consider two processes, process 1 and process 2, and consider two resources, resource 1 and resource 2. Process 1 is holding the resource R1 and it is requesting the resource R2 which is held by process P2. Similarly, process P2 is holding the resource R2 and it is requesting the resource R1 which is held by process P1, which forms a cycle which may lead to deadlock. This is a real-time example of deadlock. Two trains are traveling on different tracks. If a crossing came, a train must hold or wait for some time to continue the journey. That waiting situation is referred as deadlock situation. Another example is while playing chess, checkmate is the deadlock situation where there is no chance of escaping and have to hold for some time to move. Next example, this is a real life scenario. This seems to be a cycle because of heavy traffic which may lead to deadlock. Now we'll see the conditions for deadlock. What are the conditions that a process undergone deadlock situation? How can we identify that a process is in deadlock situation? The conditions for deadlock are mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. First, we'll see about mutual exclusion. When a process is accessing a shared variable, the process is said to be in a critical situation. One process at a time can use a resource. This diagram shows process 1 can use either resource R1 or R2. Similarly, process 2 can use the resources either R1 or R2. That is, each and every resource should be exclusively assigned to any one process. If processes are shareable, then deadlock will occur. Next condition is hold and wait. A process holding at least one resource is waiting to acquire additional resources held by another processes. This example shows printer needs scan copy to print and scanner wants a copy to scan. Hence, a process should wait for another process to release its resource. If this happens, deadlock will surely occur. Next condition is no preemption. A resource can be released only voluntarily by the process holding it. After that, the process has completed its task. Number of resources can be feasibly removed from a processor holding it. This diagram shows no preemption, that is, different processes are assigned to different resources. Any resources cannot be shared by same process or more than one process. Hence, a process should not be preemptive to another process to give its resource. If preemption doesn't occur, deadlock will occur. The last condition is circular wait. Consider many processes, process P1, P2, P3, etc. up to Pn. Hence, there exists a set of waiting processes such that P1 is waiting for a resource that is held by P2, P2 is waiting for a resource that is held by P3. Similarly, Pn is waiting for the resource that is held by Pn minus 1. This diagram shows an example for deadlock which forms a cycle which may lead to deadlock. If a graph results in cycle, then deadlock will surely occur. Hence, in mutual exclusion, we can deny this condition by simple protocol, that is, convert the all non-shareable resources to shareable resources. We can deny, next one is hold and wait. We can deny this condition with the following two protocols. A process requests the resources only when the process has none. Each process to request and be allocated all its resources before it begins execution. Next condition is no preemption. To ensure that this condition doesn't hold, we use the following protocol. We preempt the desired resources from the waiting process and allocate them to the requesting process. The last condition is circular wait. We ensure that circular wait must not happen if we apply a simple solution, that is, numbering all the resources types and each process requests resources in an increasing order of enumeration. The deadlock can be allocated if resources are allocated to each and every process carefully. That is, allocating the resources carefully so that we can avoid the deadlock. This diagram is resource allocation graph without cycle. If a graph contains no cycles, then there will not be any deadlock. If a graph contains a cycle, then it may lead to deadlock. If only one instance per resource type, then deadlock will occur. If several instances per resource type, then there might be a possibility of getting deadlock. This is the resource allocation graph. The first diagram is the resource allocation graph with deadlock. The second diagram is the resource allocation graph without deadlock. The first diagram forms a cycle, hence it may lead to deadlock. The second diagram seems to be a cycle, but different resources are allocated to different processes, which may not lead to deadlock. Even though it seems to be a cycle, but this is not an example of actual deadlock. Hence, the resource allocation graph contains cycles, but there is no deadlock. The final solution is, if you can prevent at least one of the necessary deadlock conditions, then you won't have a deadlock. Thank you.